All right, I've got my coffee. Um, got my thoughts together a little bit. I do apologize if the main episode, the discussion before and after, was kind of a little bit all over the place in terms of themes and whatnot. I do hope that I was able to kind of cut it together well enough that it made coherent sense, that it wasn't jumping all over the place and all that. Other than that, let's get into the discussion. This is the discussion version of the Monogatari reaction. If you want to see the reaction video, it's right here or in the description down below. And let's get started. Welcome to Nademonogatari. Nademonogatari. Yeah, beautiful panel, by the way. Beautiful panel. That is actually... I think that is one of the panels that is supposed to show like flirty Nadeko, basically, in the sense of when Koyomi visited her Nise, which is already kind of an indicator for us to see where this is going. Very interesting. I think I need to look up this flower here for the next reaction to kind of just tell what kind of flower this actually is, and if it represents something specific in flower language, right? But it very much features like the color scheme of Nadeko, which is kind of like a pink, rose pink-ish color. Nadeko's Life was a manga series, currently running volume 15 because of the age, obviously. The protagonist's personality is all over the place. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But also, this is teenage years, right? Not for everybody, but in many places, like, your personality kind of just flip-flops and shifts and goes into different modes, and you have that phase, and then you have that phase, right? You explore yourself. You find out who you really are and who you really want to be, right? That is determined basically... in part based on your genetics, right? Your temperament and all of the things that make you at the base level. And then obviously there's your upbringing, your parents, your educational level, your social status, right? Your social standing in society, socioeconomic status, all of that stuff determines who you are on like a very base level in terms of like capabilities and abilities and things you've been exposed to. For example, there is evidence that people who are more well-off socioeconomically, right, where parents are more like academics or rich people or whatnot, that they are more going to the theater or into the opera or getting a brush with more of the academic side of things, while and learning an instrument, right, at a young age, while people who are reading a lot of books at home, right, there's a reason why a lot of studies that are looking at new students, especially here in Germany, there's entry studies when you're getting into university. The universities often give you questionnaires and whatnot where you have to tell a little bit, or where you should or get the opportunity to tell a little bit something about yourself, such as how old you are and what prior education you have and how right, and what field you're studying in and why you're interested in it, and other like facts about you and your family and like income and whatnot. And there's a reason why you get asked how many books are in your household, which is like kind of one of the variables that can somewhat determine your literacy and your capability to kind of just, right, have knowledge on offer from like an early childhood perspective on, while people that are more in like lower socioeconomic categories that exist in families that are more like worker class and whatnot, they are more focused on when they're younger, right, when they're kids, they watch a lot more TV, right, and maybe you're not as familiar with computer. Well, not these days, because these days almost everybody has a computer, everybody has a smartphone, and that's basically like a tiny computer in your pocket. But especially like a couple of generations back, there was still the question of, did you grow up with a PC in your household? Did you grow up with a gaming console in your household, or with like a tablet or a PC or whatever in your, because not everybody has had that. These days, especially in industrial countries such as Germany or the US or Japan even. You grow up with these things in your household, right? It's somewhat of a natural thing, but a couple of generations back that wasn't the case, because it was a matter of affordability and a matter of if your parents are actually familiar with tech and if they are interested in it, or if they're more just existing on like watching TV, on a watching TV series spectrum and whatnot, which is also a form to educate yourself, no doubt, but obviously TV as a visual medium, there's more of entertainment going on and less of information. All of that determines who you are on a base level, right? And then you go beyond that and beyond your basic education and your parents and your upbringing, and you get into this and beyond like the school, the possibilities you have in an educational context, and you start to meet peers, right? And peers are we oftentimes gravitate towards the peers that kind of reflect our own personality, our own proclivities, our own abilities, right? Our own interests. Or we seek different peer groups and different hobbies, different clubs after school and all of that, and we start to explore who we really want to be. What is fun for me to do, right? What could I see myself being successful in the future? And how do I actually, right? What do I determine to be my thing in the future? And that can reach all the way into like 25, 30 years of age. And that kind of development is oftentimes promoted or rather supported by the fact that we spend more and more time in the secondary education systems, right? In school, in somewhat sheltered contexts where we don't have to work when we're, right? Back in the day, couple hundred years past, people had to start working at the age of 12 or 13 or whatnot, and childhood has been extended more and more as our level of science, right, our level of technology has been rising, and with it the demand to actually be able to at least partially understand that technology and be literate about it, and even for the most basic jobs. And we have been extending the time to school these people in understanding the basic context of science and technology, and as such you need more time to educate people. At the same time, the pressure rises to actually cram everything in there and get more done within a certain time frame. A fun fact that's kind of just very thematic to the episode right here. And then you're extending as well the sheltered life, right? Parents taking care of you financially, the state taking care of you financially through proxies, right? Especially in social welfare states such as a lot of European states, although the US is kind of iffy about that, really iffy. So, I don't know, yeah. It's very interesting, right? All of that determines who you are, but you're going through different phases. You're exploring yourself, and you do have that freedom to explore yourself because you do have financial security. You do have otherwise like a very sheltered and standardized life, right? And you do have a lot of offers to actually explore what you want to do in modern day, especially in the modern industrial countries and whatnot. And we talk about that a little bit later in the episode, where we are actually talking about how Nadeko has been sheltered a lot of times, right? And it's not always good for you, right? Because you do have to meet, as we discussed in episode 1, you do have to meet these challenges, you do have to meet difficulty in life in order to grow as a person. At the same time, I do think it's also just part of her natural development, right? To go through phases that are not good for her, to go through phases where she is maybe standing in her own way, where she has to confront truths about herself, about her basic developmental issues that she has to overcome, which a lot of theories of psychology, especially like developmental psychology, deal with the fact that we do have certain challenges in life, right? Certain big questions that we are asking, that our lives is kind of focusing on in certain phases of our lives. And obviously it's different for every person in general, but it is also it is also there's common denominators that we can kind of put down, where we're like, okay, in this phase of our lives, right, early phase of our lives, childhood, early teens, adolescence, early adulthood, whatever, we do deal, or a lot of people deal with this particular issue primarily, right? This will be like, and we can say that oftentimes because society works in a certain way. Much as like childhood has been extended, right, or secondary education has been extended, there's also been certain steps in life that we are kind of blueprinting through, right? This is like the ideal of what you want to go through, or what society thinks you should be going through, such as you start with school and then you do secondary education and then you either go to university or you start with like a traineeship, right? And then you're kind of splitting ways, right? With university, you go into academics after that, right? You do have maybe like some secondary trainee stuff after your academic career. And in like trainee stuff, like if you start with a traineeship and you go into a certain vocation and whatnot, you're gonna be expected to be maybe promoted down the line, right? Rise the ranks a little bit in your personal like hierarchy of whatever you're working at. And then you're expected at some point along the lines maybe to meet a partner and get married and get a kid and found a family, right? And go through a couple of decades, and after that you retire and your family, right? Your kids are going through similar structures. And this is kind of like the blueprint of what life is supposed to be. And we're not even getting taught that in a very like in a school context where it's like, oh, okay, look, this is what you're gonna do. It's more like implicitly being taught as we observe what other people go through in life, right? So very much our parents' biography is one of the main determinants of us actually looking at it and being like, okay, this is generally what I want to go through too, or this is where I want to do things differently, right? They serve as like a source of orientation for us to actually go through. The interesting thing about Nadeko is we haven't seen a lot about her parents. The only thing we've seen is that they pretty much are too afraid to change anything about Nadeko's room when she was missing for that time period. They apparently, this episode, they apparently left her mostly alone and sheltered for a time as she was going through it when she did return, right? When she was starting that whole manga artist thing. And then later on, right now in this episode, we do find out that they're like, after middle school, you better finish middle school and look that you get to work and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, first of all, work after middle school, hopefully it's just like, please get a degree so you can work later, and not like, please get a middle school degree and then immediately work, because that's kind of weird, even for Japan. I think Japan, like high school is almost mandatory in Japan in terms of like just qualifying for most of the jobs that you're supposed to do. But either way, it feels like the interest in their daughter is very superficial, or at the very least very disconnected, right? In the sense of like, we're going to do hands off, not going to involve ourselves as much into her life. Maybe that's a reaction to what happened with her in Nademonogatari and all the other previous like second season Monogatari things, and maybe previously it was more like doting on her being helicopter parents, determining everything about her life, right? We do have this whole phase of her just being cute and everybody just seeing her as cute and whatnot. There's doting and sheltering and all of that going on. At the same time, we do have that feeling that, especially with what we know about Nadeko in the closet and her manga stuff, that she was for the longest time afraid to actually show anybody who she wanted to be and what she wanted to do in her dreams. So the question is, was there a fundamental disconnect between her and her parent where she got the feeling that they wouldn't understand what she is doing? And now we get kind of like the soft confirmation of that, where they're like, yeah, okay, we left you to your own, like, right? We left you to heal maybe from what you've been through, and we left you to kind of just sort yourself out, but now we're impatient and we're not letting you sort yourself out anymore. We want you to move in a direction, which, again, not wrong, right? We need to meet difficulty to develop, and in this case, maybe this is the kind of trigger for Nadeko to get to the point where she where she needs to be in order to become a successful manga artist as she wants to be, right? Education is important too, or being able to deal with other people. You need to do that as a manga artist too, even though these days you can be online and it's a lot easier, but you have to deal with people, you have to exist in society, you have to interact with people, and your parents are not always going to be there for you. And obviously it makes sense that in the beginning stages it is very hard. You start something out and it's not very successful right away, right? Even though you're talented, even though you put a lot of time into it. Most of the things you start out, like YouTube for example, or other things, you pour in like countless hours that get you little to no money, that get you little to no recognition, that, right? The momentum of a YouTube channel, for example, growing is exponential. So if you are at 100 subscribers, you're going to grow super slowly in comparison to somebody who is at 100,000 subscribers, because those people gain sometimes 100, 200, 500 subscribers a week, or maybe even a day. While you gain maybe 1 or 5 or 10 subscribers a week or a day, or maybe even a month sometimes if you have a low impact month. And it's the same with any other vocation, right? You start out drawing, you put yourself out there, maybe get some praise and whatever, right? Some people like you in a kind of a niche way, which is already a lucky thing. But you need time. You need to invest a lot more time, like infinitely more time into doing this thing than you actually end up getting back within the first couple of years of doing it. I think like this whole thing about doing 10,000 hours is a little bit extreme on like Nadeko's side, that she's like, okay, I need exactly this much, but first of all, put a number on it, which is not, you can't determine that. And second of all, this is how I understood it originally. Ononoki was saying it, where I was like, yeah, you need to put more effort into it on a quality side, right? Take your time, do it, right? Find a sustainable way to do it. But no, Ononoki is actually going in the opposite direction. She's like, you just need quantity. And I'm like, no, I mean, yes, on a basic level. I have friends who are artists and whatnot. Not talking to them a lot lately, unfortunately, but either way, right? And I have heard that a couple of times. Sometimes you just need to sit down and just draw. You need to just continuously draw and focus your mind on doing that, like drawing specific things, oftentimes repetitive, learning shapes and whatnot, and then you get to the level that you are talented enough to actually make proper stuff, and then you can start with your creative choices. And right in between, you can always do that, right? You can always be like, okay, I have like inspiration and I want to do this creative piece, right? I want to do this motive and that motive. But to get continuously better, you actually do have to continuously just practice, and that's a thing, right? But you can't put a number on it. You can't put an artificial number on it. And I don't think quantity is everything. I don't think that quantity makes sense in this case. I think giving it your best shot in every way you can. Sometimes you're not there 100%, and that's fine. But then in that specific case, right, you don't have all of your energy that you want to, right, that you normally would have, right? You can't reach your max potential, but at the same time, you're still practicing. And while you're practicing and you're not at 100% energy, you're at like 70%, for example, those 70% are probably around 100% of what you can give right now, right? And that's the most important thing, because you're not always going to be at your A game, and that always goes for you. It's not only when you just start practicing. It's even if you're professional, you're not going to be at your A game all the time. So what's important is that you raise that bar of what your average is going to be. But yeah, we're going into this that supposedly and apparently it is very, very much, I do love this, right? The different shells actually, the different shells separating the different Nadekos. And she's talking a lot about like that she's very different throughout her life. And I did wonder where we're going with this, but as we can see at the end of the episode, we do have kind of a conundrum thanks to Ononoki suggesting that. I mean, even if like, why are you suggesting that? You said you wouldn't recommend it. Why are you suggesting it, Ononoki? Please, don't get us more trouble. I mean, yes, please get us more trouble, because it's gonna be more episode, it's gonna be more interesting shit, but at the same time, please don't. And we do have all the different phases, right, of Nadeko, which is true. She was going through a lot of stuff. Ironically enough, we are starting... Stop, okay. Yeah, clear sign, please stop. We are starting with the exact same thing that we started out this entire Nadeko conundrum when Ogi got involved, right? Ogi is driving towards her. We do that piece for piece, literally from the episode when this happened. Breaking, throwing up into the air, being like, oh no, I'm gonna do a cool trick, right? I'm gonna flip it, I'm gonna ace it and whatnot, but impacting on the ground and making a total fucking holy look at that goober. We do it beat for beat. And Nadeko almost doesn't remember it, right? She does remember it in the end, but I do feel like there's a lot of like memories and thoughts about her Nadeko snake time and the time shortly before that has been kind of shoved into a back shelf of her mind, where she just doesn't wanna think about it or talk about it in any way. I do love all of the angles we're having here. When she's standing up, right, she's coming right in, and we do have like that weird perspective of almost like she's hugging you. And we do have the flashcards. Wait, a boy's uniform? And yes, I think when she met her the first time, when Ogi met her the first time, they were a girl, right? The boy transformation was only present after Owari 2 and in Hana, which is chronologically after Owari 2. And we do have like the world is turned upside down kind of symbolism, which is absolutely cool. I didn't know about you, but you knew about me, right? It was the reverse last time around. And we do have the fool line. No, we do have the other line. I don't know anything. It's what you know, which he used to say to Araragi a lot, which was kind of the start of his self-exploration, right? His remembering things of his past. Again, we do have that parallel, right? Nadeko remembering her past in a way in this episode, right? Retracing her past, processing it maybe. Because maybe, right, even though she made a cut, she put a bow on it, she kind of just moved on and took the first step to becoming her new person, right, her new identity. Sometimes we need to look back and actually process what's been happening in the past. And sometimes we can't do it immediately, right? Immediately after we've parted way with that past, we can't look back and be like, okay, let me explore that. But we need some time in between where we do have us focusing on specific goals, us developing in our own way. And then when we arrive at a certain point, there comes the conjuncture that we have to look back and be like, okay, how do I integrate all of that into a coherent self, right? How do I integrate that into myself and use that as well to become somebody even more like the person I want to be in the future? Sorry. That is a fucking cool, right? With the eye, and we used the two rough outlines of the eye to actually go into memories about Ogi being like female, and it overlaps and it's like it all goes together. I still love that we're actually literally at the place that Ogi and Nadeko met originally. And he's like, please call me Big Bro, right? Ogi Oni-san, which I'm like, literally Araragi, right? Literally Koyomi. And the question mark, like with Araragi as well, right? His ahoge. Distorted perspective, right? As we're going into, like, you were going to school, right? But Nadeko is like, no, I wasn't going to school. She wasn't, right? She's already changed out of those clothes. No, she didn't change out of those clothes. Actually, her other self was going to school, and she was actually just searching for her other selves, which is interesting. She's not heading to school, and it's still a sore topic to her. We see that in the distortion of what's happening around that. She's anxious about it, right? Even her stance, the way, right, the knees slightly buckled to the inside, and we do have the one of the arms being kind of just cramped up, right? The muscles tense, and her looking downwards in a like uncomfortable way. And then we focus on the shadow, You're like, I totally assumed you were going to school because I saw you, and she's been looking for herself, right? Yeah, and then we go into what is happening right now, right? And Nadeko did the calculations. She's like, I only need to work 1 year to actually, I do only need to try hard for 1 year, and then it's going. This is how it always is, right? The grind is fucking real. You're like, okay, 1 year, we're gonna do this, right? And then at like the deadline of year 1, you're gonna be like, okay, 1 year wasn't enough. We're gonna 2 years, right? 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and it's just never ending. So let me tell you something, right? The grind is real and the grind is good, right? Just continue to self-improve, to try to get better, to try to reach your goals. That is important, but also sometimes just take your day off, right? Sometimes just take some time for yourself and be like, today I'm not going to do anything, or today I'm going to do what I want to do, right? Just relax, do something that's fun, do something with friends, whatever. Do that, because it's very important to understand that there's always something more to be done. That there's always something more you could be doing, especially if it's something like YouTube, but even in other places, right? There's always something you could be doing to be ahead of the competition. There's always something you could be doing to be ahead of your schedule, right? There's always something that you could learn, something you could work and create for, but you're gonna burn out if you don't put in those pauses that you personally actually need. Because you do need those pauses. You actually fucking need, oh, sorry about that. You actually fucking need those pauses. It's very important. Yeah, we're going through it. You need sleep, right? You need sleep. Don't skip on sleep, because it's one of the most important things in life, that you are continuously improving upon yourself, that you are continuously at the point where you get enough self-repair. Sleep is also a big phase of consolidation of memory. So if you're learning something, if you're studying for something, just skipping on sleep is the worst thing you can do, because you're not consolidating what you're learning, and then you have to read it all over again to actually get it into the noggin of yours. So definitely. And all of the little inconveniences, right? Eating, making yourself food, going to the toilet, all of these things, working, they all take up time, which Nadeko here realizes. She realizes things aren't as easy as, right, just focusing on the thing you want to do 24/7. That's not how it is, right? There's more to living, which is where we got into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example, where we are looking at where self-fulfillment is in that hierarchy. And oftentimes, right, well, actually, let me just get it on the screen. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom layer of it, you have physiological needs. You cannot be self-actualizing, fulfilling yourself, developing as a person, getting creative, learning new things, if you do not have your physiological needs met. Yeah, right? You do have air. You need air to breathe. You do have water, you have food, you have shelter, you have sleep and clothing, you have reproduction not in a direct sense, but we do have urges, right? And these urges are gonna distract us if they're not partially fulfilled, or at least somewhat dissuaded, right? Depending on, obviously, how your libido is. It's different for every person, how your hormonal structure is going on, right? You have safety needs. You need to be secure, right? Security. That's why it's so important for children to actually get the proper nutrition, but also to get security, to have the feeling that tomorrow you're going to be fine as well, right? To not have displacement, right? That's why wars and other conflicts and troublesome times are so problematic for children. That's why it's sometimes difficult if you are a parent of a child, and you do have to move for work a lot, and you take your child with you, because there's like they don't establish this sense of like security and familiarity and whatnot. Yeah, this is why it's so important that children have a coherent sense of actually being safe in the environment they're in. Now, oftentimes, obviously, it's not a problem if you're moving a lot, as long as you just provide them that security, and as long as they understand that and learn that the places they are at and the people they're with, that this is security. And there is employment, resources, health, property, right? All of that is kind of part of your safety needs, right? Because they increase the predictability of your environment, they increase the sense of the environment being secure for you. And then we have love and belonging, which is obviously friendship, intimacy, family, all of that, right? The sense of connection that you have, which is where it can become difficult when you're moving a lot, because you don't have those peer relations, you don't have that friendship, right? That possibly, right? These days it's a little bit easier because you maybe can still stay in contact with some people, but there's always a difference in how deep the relationships can go. And then we get to self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. All of these things that are more about internally being in being in balance, and I think this is where we actually set on in terms of Nadeko, because Nadeko has physiological needs met, she has safety needs met, she has love and belonging met, the self-esteem kind of thing, the self-respect kind of thing, the status, the recognition, all of these things are up in the air for her, right? Because she doesn't have a degree, she has barely developed as a person because she's still a teenager, and the desire to become the most that one can be, the self-actualization, is actually the tip of the pyramid, because that's the goal. The goal is to become the person you want to be, right? To reach your full potential, which barely anybody does, but at the very least, most of the people, what the people want is getting close to that. And that is, in my opinion, these two things at the tip of the pyramid, those are the ones that we're dealing with when it comes to Nadeko. But she rightfully says that unless all of these other needs at the base of all of that is met, right? Love from her family, support from her family, intimacy, a sense of connection to other people, which you could kind of argue she doesn't completely have. Safety needs, which she does have met, but might be in jeopardy once she continues with that behavior of hers and not going to school and all of that, and her parents are gonna get continuously angry. At the same time, obviously, they are kind of enabling her, as Ononoki says in the episode itself. Though I do feel like the question is always, what do you need as a person, right? Because different ages, different people develop differently at different ages, and we do need to keep in mind that all of these things, all of these developments that we go through, they're not linear. Not everybody goes through the same things at the same age, and some people need a lot more time to develop certain things than they need to develop other things. And the question is how you are behaving, how you are treating that person. Is it good for their personal development, or is it bad? And I do think we often need to question that over and over again, because we get to the point that maybe, yeah, for a time, sheltering Nadeko was good for her, right? In the beginning, it was good for her as a child, and then as she started to grow up and have those issues within herself, right, that should have been the point where we slowly lowered the dose of sheltering, which we didn't do, which created all of this problem, but she got over it herself, right? And obviously, it's not just her parents' fault, but it's just the way the dynamics developed, how she interacted with her environment, and how her environment treated her in return. But she got over that. She got to the point where she managed to take the next step to develop. Yeah, but now that she's gotten over these issues, that she handled them more or less herself and has set herself onto a new goal, obviously, this very crucial phase, and oftentimes in the development of children, we do talk about these crucial windows of development, right? Obviously, we talk more about them when it comes to developing specific capabilities and abilities, right? Specific key components of human behavior and of human reasoning and processing and all of that. Though there are key windows for that, such as learning speech, right? You're learning human behavior and interaction, learning human facial expressions and all of that. We see that a lot in those rare cases of children actually growing up in nature alone or with wolves or whatever and surviving somehow, and they get back into society, and you do see that they missed certain windows of development where they couldn't develop certain abilities. But even for like soft skills, right? Things that are maybe more along the lines of us getting to the next developmental stage of our own personal development as an individual. Even there are certainly windows in which the children, the teenagers are more sensitive to outside input and to handling them correctly. And I do think that this specific phase where Nadeko switched from, yeah, I'm just gonna do what people expect of me, right? I'm gonna fulfill a role, I'm gonna whatever, and switches from that to, I'm gonna do what I actually want to do, I'm gonna put it out there, I'm gonna lay it on the line, and I'm gonna put my heart into it. But still has these insecurities, for example, about school because of what happened with her classmates and all of that. Especially that time, obviously, we go back from the, yeah, she doesn't need that sheltering and should have been, right, phased out, to, okay, we are in a different stage right now, and this is a very sensitive stage in which she maybe needs a little bit of sheltering for a set period of time, and then we gotta phase it out again. The problem we do have here, and the problem I do see, is that Nadeko's parent at this point reached a limit, right? They gotten to the point that they're like, okay, we don't know what to do, right? We're kind of lost on all of that, and that is the problem. They have an inherent disconnect between Nadeko and her parents that they kind of don't understand one another on that level. So they don't understand what's going on inside of their daughter. So they impose their own assessment of what's going on, and their assessment is she's not going to school, she's not being a productive member of society. When she doesn't get a degree, then she will not be able to find any proper work and will not be able to become independent. So they put the pressure on her, and they're like, all right, you got to do something. We don't want you fucking around, right? But actually it's not. It's maybe something that might be really viable for her, but they don't even take the time to look at what she's creating, right? The things she's doing. Or maybe they think it's implausible that she will become something. They don't believe in her, right? They don't believe in her the way maybe she needs to be believed in. At the same time, though, we create a challenge in this particular case. I still think it's the wrong approach, and we're going right. We're going towards this in a wrong way, because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, her needs, right, her base needs need to be fulfilled, and that the one of the needs that is not fulfilled, or at the very least threatened in this situation, where they're like, you better get on with your life and do your shit, otherwise, right? We're gonna be very uncomfortable with you. Although I doubt they would kind of throw her to the street, right? Because obviously, they are still very doting in a way, maybe in their own dysfunctional way, but they are doting to a degree, right? They're still helicopter parents in a way. So they are enabling. They did enable her to stay there for a long time, and they don't throw her out, which Ononoke brings forth. He's like, well, actually, they're enabling you by still letting you stay here and whatnot. Like, what are you gonna do with a middle schooler, right? Throw her the fuck out of the street? What? That's ridiculous, and that's insane, and you know that this is not gonna be like, this is maybe something for somebody who's like 20 plus, and you know, they don't get on and they need that push, right, to get out, and then like a year later or two, you're like, look, right, or maybe immediately you're like, look, I'm gonna throw you out, but in a couple of years, if you manage to kind of get yourself going, right, you can come back, right? And that's fine. That's fine. Have that safety net in the back of your mind. Is still gonna be something that helps you along the lines. Either way, like I said, we do have that challenge coming in when Nadeko is focused on actually getting on with her talent and actually making it happen, which is not great for any kind of creative work, but also not for any kind of skill you want to develop. You want to develop that skill while being relatively secure. That being said, there's an easy solution to that, and that easy solution is start going to school again, right? Start getting your real thing going, and then do that in parallel, which would work perfectly fine. So where is Nadeko in terms of like the hierarchy of needs? Obviously, hierarchy of needs is not like a linear thing where you're like, this person is exactly there, but we could assess that she's probably around like the stage of, of security, going into developing your skills, and self-actualization is her final goal, right? Becoming the person she wants to become. And she's well on her way to do that, and obviously she's gonna meet challenges along the way, and that's just how it goes. But she aptly realizes after a time of trying to practice and get this thing going, being like, I only have a year to do, right, to do this, and it's gonna be fine. I only have to invest 1 year of real effort to actually make this happen. She realizes that, yeah, there's base needs. Even as somebody as sheltered as her, there is base needs you need to take care of. But we're gonna move ahead. Ononoke's fucking idea is just fucking clone yourself, forehead. I mean, she says she doesn't recommend it. Again, she says she doesn't recommend it, but still. The clones, yeah. I mean, we're already stating why the clones are problematic, because accountability, right? They're going out there. They're basically a one-to-one copy of Nadeko, at least in some stage of her life, in the stage of her life that she was present in those environments, and they are actually going towards those environments, right? Because this is where they feel at home. This is where they want to achieve their goals at this stage in Nadeko's life, which is gonna be really problematic. But this also might trigger something very good. Good changes, good changes in Nadeko herself by reflecting on her past, but also forcing Nadeko into action within these environments. For example, school, which is the first one we're gonna encounter here. Forcing her to maybe do something that contributes to her further development, such as maybe going back to school, getting her things settled there, or at least like drawing a line and being like, I've processed this, I've done the things I should have been doing, right? Talk it out with my classmates and all of that. I do see one of the real possible issues in God Nadeko, like, what the fuck, right? If it has some of those god powers, but then again, the way I know Nisio Isin, and I don't know him at all, but the way I know him a little bit is maybe God Nadeko is actually the least problematic. Because if you think about it, we do already know that God Nadeko supposedly hasn't been seen yet, and we are assuming that this might be a reflection of her god powers in the lesser state of not being seen by other people, and that might just be true, but it also might be a metaphor, kind of, for the fact that the God Nadeko is kind of something we already overcame, right? In our personal development. So in this stage, God Nadeko is basically the foil, or rather, no, the other way around. Current Nadeko is actually the foil to God Nadeko, and maybe her not being seen and her possibly not making any trouble is the perfect metaphor for this state of being, because the two of them balance out. And even if she becomes a possible problem, I can see like the situation coming where they meet face to face and current Nadeko literally obliterates her, because she is that state of being that is basically having overcome the stage of God Nadeko. I mean, that's what's going on in my head. It could come completely different, right? And we do have some other aspects about God Nadeko that weren't processed properly, so that's all possible, of course. Also, side note, what the fuck is seductive Nadeko gonna do? Like, holy shit, no, please, fucking, it's time to stop. No, but I'm wondering if we will see 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗰, right? Because seductive Nadeko, which was focused mostly or solely on 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝘶, so she would probably seek an environment that is close to 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝘀, so I wonder if I'm gonna see him in the next couple of episodes sometime. I think another strong point of this whole clone thing is actually, like I mentioned earlier, Nadeko will be able to process her past selves, right? On a mental level, on an observational learning level. She learns what her why her maladaptive behaviors were bad originally, right? Learns a little bit more about why her separating from these past selves she had actually originally happened, right? Learning more about her current self in the process, and also why it's good that she separated herself from them. But she might also, on the other way, on the other side, learn that there's positive things to every Nadeko that existed in the past, right? Every part of her identity that was prominent in the past, because, for example, she could learn that assertive/wrath Nadeko knows how to stand up for herself, and is able to express herself strongly in front of others and handle conflict, right? Seductive Nadeko, for example, has maybe a better sense of self-worth, right? Know how she's using the body and the person she is to actually get what she wants. That was kind of her thing at a certain stage in time, right? God Nadeko, I don't know, lol. I don't know, lol. I don't know what good you can get from that. Self-deception and fucking yandere. I don't know. I literally don't know what you could get from her in terms of like positive aspects. I think Shy Nadeko has good aspects, right? Being modest, being kind to a degree, the ability to manipulate people. That's not morally good, but that is an asset, right? It is something of a functional ability, a useful ability that one can use if they need to, and they can still do it in a somewhat morally okay manner, I do feel, right? It all depends what you want to get out of the situation and how you approach it. But because people can be assertive, people can be manipulative, people can know how to present themselves without being be deceptive without necessarily being malicious in that. The last point I wanted to talk about is kind of Ogi's involvement, and I don't know how to parse that, to be honest. I don't yet know how specifically and precisely Ogi will be involved, and how we're gonna put that down. I mean, Ogi is kind of an anomaly, although Ononoki is too, right? We do have these two oddities being kind of involved in all of this. Yeah. I mean, it's a great episode, honestly. Such a fucking great episode. All the manga panels that we see, the little like sneak peeks. I do see like spot like two panels which are not Nadeko, which is the two ones in front here. I mean, it could be versions of Nadeko in her mind or whatever, but it's not something we've seen in the past. Most of the other panels I do recognize from past like Monogatari stuff. So seeing all of these in one fucking line is very, very cool and a nice callback. We do have all of them, and she's kind of just inside a room of her own past, right? Trying to parse that, because this is the moment that we actually say, hey, can you draw your past selves, right? Where she reflects on that, narrates back and is like, this is how it started. Again, like the four pillars, separating them, and then they're changing as they go past the pillars. Anytime, anywhere, with any person, if you could have the same personality the whole time, I think that would be abnormal. Yeah, right. Social masks. We are all that way, right? If we are in a certain environment, we behave a certain way. When I'm in an academic environment, talking to professors, I'm gonna be acting differently than talking to you guys about anime or talking to my friends about other things, right? Talking about filmmaking, being in a circle of people who are interested in filmmaking, I would be talking in a different way. Talking to my family, I'm a different person basically, but it's all me. And I think the important thing is that Nadeko, I think she has a coherent sense of self. I don't see any like split personality kind of split identity disorder or whatever. But what I do see is that she is having a hard time actually creating a coherent image of her own development. And I think at the end of this arc, we probably will have that. I do love how the sky is big and she is small in this panel, right? Like it's almost trying to oppress her and push her down. 15-Year-Olds hasn't even gotten a one-shot published. Of course it hasn't. It hasn't even begun. It keeps getting rejected during the planning phase. Isn't that what kind of being a teenager is, right? Going through the planning stages, looking for whatever it is you that wants to stick with you. Nademonogatari episode 0, by the way, right? Not Oroka Monogatari. It's Nademonogatari episode 0, which really cool, really cool. Nadeko Draw Part 1. Okay, episode 0 even, right? We're doing an episode 0 instead of doing an episode 1, which I find very cool because Nadeko, I mean, she doesn't start from 0, but I guess this is her 0 development line, where she's going from. These angles are fucking amazing, right? And I don't know how, like, I can't always describe it, but this is just like, this is a person who knows how a camera works, right? And draws it accordingly. Obviously, there's always the amazing style with the street, right? We have the roads, 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗰 Road, by the way. Shout out to 𝗠𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗶 Road. We went through this again, like, sorry, I had to reset because my camera battery was empty, then I had to go to work. So the part you're seeing right now is kind of like, I guess, 8 hours after I've recorded the first part of the discussion. Again, yeah, don't know what's with Ogi. I do love the reflections in all of that, and like the little references to her or their nature changing over time. This is very interesting frames, right? These real life recording frames. I haven't used them or those a lot. Interestingly enough, we do have that sand of time running, right? Like it's an hourglass, but it's like kind of sparkly a little bit. And we've been in these situations. All of us have been in these situations, right? Like that we're realizing things take longer than we need to. Things are not progressing as fast as we would like them to, or we can't do as much. Do love these little fucking cut-ins that we have. And we start out with Ononoki's feet. Fucking feet. I mean, it's shoes, okay? It's shoes. Calm yourself down, people. But yeah, we do start with that very close-up, and then we're zooming out of her movements, which is basically like her 180 degree, and then holy shit. That is, I mean, it's not even a neck tilt, it's just a body tilt. Holy shit. I love the little whimsies of the artist. It's really great, including like meta commentary, even these simple panels where you just see a normal background with her looking at her sketchbook. The sketchbook is very detailed, and you see a really cool background with like the light from the windows coming in and creating an interesting pattern. We talk about Tsukiyi, and suddenly we snap to an egg-like hairpiece. We talk about how Nunuki stays along, and we show the snail in like a remembrance of the last episode. Same with this one, with the remembrance of the last episode. Reflecting this, using her as a model, talking about it, and then doing this in order to kind of just reinforce what we're saying while we're saying it, which is really, really great. That's a lot of shoes. And we flash back to that time limit. She's got a time limit now too. The snake in front of the window as a cloud, which holy fuck, dude. And we do keep seeing these shoujo manga panels, and basically her self-insert character being in there. Ononoki talking about using her sex appeal, or her, like, not sex appeal, her cuteness as like a sale booster for her, right? In order to like get popular. Again, almost fisheye lensy with like the presentation we have here. And now we look down, right? From up, down, but it's still fisheye lensy, which, right? We're playing with perspective so much from down up, right? And what are we talking about? I personally think that you shouldn't do this, but this is the only way left for us. This is the only way, right? And we're looking up at her like she's gonna make a tough decision, kind of, right? Low key. 2, how many? Yeah, I don't know, man. Also, Japanese people and their fascination with people who are like in high school. Like, I don't know, man. That's what happens when everybody tells you high school is the peak of your life, right? When life is actually this so shit after high school because you're going to work yourself to fucking death because holy shit. But this is the whole world, right? Japanese culture is just like the extreme of that, but it's like that in America too at this point. I'm fucking glad I live in Europe, to be honest, even if we're probably just a couple, like 5 to 10 years behind you guys. Plan to. No sleep, no rest. Holy shit, that's the pink cube philosophy, isn't it? Again, these perspective shots are fucking insane. I do love every minute, every second of this anime. This is the problem with Monogatari. You can yap about this for like 2 hours because literally every panel has meaning. It has wordplays. It has perspective. It has interesting angles. It has little nudges and references and whatnot. This entire episode, the entire last episode, both of them were so densely packed with material that you could be talking for 3 or 4 hours about this shit and you wouldn't be done. You wouldn't be done. You would constantly branch off in tangents and whatnot. 5 people and hands against the light. We're starting to overdo it, kind of. I see it like that. Obviously, we do use the manga analogy, which makes perfect sense in terms of like Nadeko. And in her shot, right, in the reflection of the eyes, Nadeko looks so meek and so tiny, right? So easy to be influenced in this specific case. And also what we just talked about, how Nadeko has a very hard time dealing with other people, right, and interacting with them. So this is also a reflection of how Ononoki sees her in that very moment, which is, you're not that good at this stuff socially. And this is how she is presented in the eyes themselves. I want to read that again with the Shikigami. It's rather cheeky to use Gami, God, in front of you, who used to be a god. Okay, this is how she made the reference, like, you used to be a god. It's kind of like cheeky that I use Gami, the Gami in Shikigami. So you call it... So call it a familiar instead, right? This is how Ononoki also sees herself, as a familiar. And we do have that one moment that I actually want to check out. If I have a chance, I'll introduce you to her, I'm sure, because I would like to give you a big lecture. And she's like, I'm really not looking forward to that shit. But yeah. What the fuck was that? We're gonna panel search again, holy shit. Yeah, okay, big sister, and she's putting the big sister on her finger and then moving it up, and then we see her moving her with the finger as we saw in like the original series. Again, the finger pointing directly at Nadeko, right? Ononoki as an instrument of change in this very, very specific case. For portraits, and she's trying to, I will materialize them. So Ononoki can do that and turn them into Shikigami. All right. So she learned to do that, right? Can a Shikigami create another Shikigami? Or is just Ononoki just gaslighting Nadeko because Nadeko has this skill and can do it on her own? I think it's Ononoki, actually, right? She is the mediator in this specific case, and Nadeko is the creative mind behind it. It's like Nadeko is the manga artist and Ononoki is the anime production studio. Perspectives. What are we doing with the hands here? I'm picking up on your brilliant talent. And she's like, brilliant talent? Right. She needs that encouragement because nobody else is giving it to her, to be honest. For a monstrosity with no guys, visualization is quite an important factor. Take, for example, how yeah, right, we don't have a guise for that. Right. And visualization is an important element. Also, I saw that book cover of like probably... I think Nademonogatari on the side. Energy within the pen, right? The pen mightier than the sword in this case. And we're trying to sell it to her, being like, you're kind of still dangerous to her, so maybe you want to be in her good graces? Yeah. And while we're doing that, we're conspiring, right? We're looking from below, right? Like an animal listening into a private conversation. We're listening to the two heads talking, getting closer. And it's important for Gan, if you're useful, right? If you're useful, you can stay. That's Gan's thing. Fucking insidious. To differentiate them, we're actually drawing them differently, and this was the crux of the problem, but also probably the key point of why Nadeko will be able to develop down the line with her own problems, with her school stuff, with all of that stuff. The meekest and shy. Seductive Nadeko. We peek under the table, like, what the fuck? A completely unwilling cutting off bangs by a friend, tax included. For free, right? For free. Interestingly enough, we do have the desk over her head, right? Like it's her bangs. Class splintering and her reflection in it. Wrath. And then God, I would call her crazy, but you know, call it what you want. Gods are crazy. Really cool with the bus stop too. So much amazing, beautiful art. The symmetry in this shot. And then we kind of, all right, this is Ogi and Tsukiji repeated. But I don't know why yet. I don't quite know why yet. But this is literally the same shot. Right, and we're going to find the 4 selves, and we show the 4 arrows, right? Uniform dress, yukata, camisole, the different designs that she chose for them. And we look down like we're just all alone in this entire sequence. By the way, right? So far there haven't been any characters aside from them. No background characters, right? Interesting, because oftentimes when, like in Monogatari, we do rarely have background characters, but we have them occasionally, and then they're just concepts. So far we haven't seen anything, it's empty. And we're looking down upon Ogi, right? And I find that very interesting that we are, like, Nadeko is obscuring the light, but the light is, like, occasionally, like, regularly showing through, right? Shining through her hair, which I think is a deliberate artistic choice, and is kind of metaphorical for the state she's in right now, right? She is kind of obscuring the light for herself, or maybe even for others. She's like, maybe her true potential is shining through slowly, and this is a foreshadowing of what's to come. Maybe I'm just fucking crazy and pointing at everything as a sign. So both of these are possible. Yeah, it would make sense that none of them would actually listen to her because they're not on one wavelength with her. So failed. We get them next time. Really cool shot of the broken window. The color scheme getting green and all of that, right? In the middle of the night. We have the Pokemon reference. Again, this shot of like the corner, and we see both angles, and holy fuck. This is so gorgeous. The fucking new Shaft is doing their utmost to uphold their reputation, and it's working. Yeah. And we're arriving at the school because this is where Ogi's seen the first Nadeko. And now it all makes sense, right? It all makes sense. The snail, and after that going over all the Nadekos, right? And then Andetto, and over time here turning into a snail. Yeah, seeing all the Nadekos and seeing Ononoki on the other side. I guess we needed a fucking right. We needed a mirror. It can't be too obvious. But yeah, that was Nademonogatari, apparently. Episode 0. I yapped on for a lot, which means I have to fucking cut a lot of stuff, unfortunately. Another beautiful episode, jam-packed with references, jam-packed with amazing angles, with really cool metaphoric angles even, right? Metaphors for certain states of mind, certain shots evoking feelings, evoking emotions, evoking a certain perspective that is enhancing and underlining what is said during the dialogue, and the grander themes that are being spun in this episode. Shaft doesn't miss. Shaft doesn't miss, not at the moment at least. I don't know how the Ruby anime was. I know there was some kind of like thing going on, but I didn't watch it. But right, all of the other series back in the day and right now, Shaft doesn't miss. I do hope it will continue like that, and I'll be seeing you on episode 1 of Nademonogatari, hopefully next week. Bruh.